Okay, so another tool in Python that we can leverage is this idea of what we call logic control. And there's two mechanisms by which we deal with logic control. Now, regardless of which one we use, we always use what's called logical operators. So our first discussion here in logic control is the idea of logical operators, okay? And basically, here's the idea behind logical operators. We have a value, let's say we set x equal to 5, all right? And basically, we want to test whether or not x is, or more generally, we want to compare the value of whatever is in x to a given value, or a value in another variable. So for example, I could ask, is x equal to 4? Now we know x is not equal to 4, but I could test that, right? So I could say something along the lines that, is x equal to 4? So when we put two equal signs, we're basically asking Python, hey, compare the left-hand side, whatever values in that variable, to whatever is on the right-hand side. And if the two are equal, then we're going to get a value of true given back to us. If they're not equal, we're going to get a value of false. So as we can see, these should be not equal. So when we run this, as you can see, we get false. That's because those are not equal. On the other hand, I could use the logical operator not equals. And in this case, I should get true. That it's a true statement. X is not equal to 4, right? When we use the exclamation mark, that means not. So not equal to 4. And when we do that, of course, that is true. Now, what I could do is reverse this logic and put an exclamation here, and now I'll get false again. Oh, no, I'm mixing up my programming languages yet again. Don't do that, okay? But anyway, this is the point. Left-hand side, logical operator, right-hand side. I could also ask, is x less than 4? Is x bigger than 4? Is x bigger than or equal to 4? Is x less than or equal to 4? Okay, and if we run all of those, we'll get our answers, or not. Let's go one at a time. X is not less than 4, that's because it's 5. X is bigger than 4, that's true. X is bigger than or equal to 4, that's true. X is less than or equal to 4, that is false. So these are what we refer to as logical operators. We are operating on the idea of true and false statements. Now, the idea behind logic control in programming languages is basically we want the program to execute conditionally. In other words, we want to run some commands in certain situations and other commands in other situations based on a given value. So for example, suppose I ask a user for to input their age, right? So I could say age is equal to the input. In other words, I'm going to ask somebody to input their age. And let's just make this a little more interactive. Please input your age. Okay. So we input the age, and by the way, we need to ensure we convert this to integers because that is what age is. Remember, we can convert to integers using the integer function by passing in the variable that we intend to convert to an integer. If it's not an actual number, it's not going to convert it to an integer. So in this case, it is an integer, or at least we're assuming it is. And from there, we get back our age, which is stored in age. Now, we basically want to test what the age is. If it's so for example, suppose we were trying to determine if somebody can purchase alcohol, right? We know that if somebody is above the age of 21, we will let them purchase alcohol. If the age is less than 21, then we don't want to let them purchase alcohol. This is a perfect use case of logic control. Basically, the system here, what we want to do for our commands is we want to take whatever age the user inputted to us, and we want to test it against the age of 21. Now, If that age is less than 21, we basically just want to print out to the screen, sorry, you can't purchase alcohol, you're less than 21. On the other hand, if that age is more than 21, we want to say, next, of course, what would you like to purchase, or what alcohol would you like to purchase? Something to that effect, right? So we can do this in Python by using what's called the if statement. If is going to check if a logical statement is true or false. If it is false, it's going to skip over pieces of code or commands that we give it directly under the if statement. If this if statement is true, it will execute those, but then skip over the alternative sequence of commands which we give it. So here we want to test if the age is less than or equal to 21 years old. Actually, just less than, because if you're exactly 21, you can purchase alcohol, right? Now, the way we do this is we type the word if with a space, and then we give it our logical test, similar to what we've done up there. This always needs to be a logical statement. It always needs to give a true or false response, whether that is sending it through a function and getting back a true or false, or just doing a direct comparison test right there on the fly, which is what we're doing here. When we're done with our logical test, we basically need to put a colon. And when we skip to the next line, you'll see that the editor immediately adds a tab. What that simply means is I'm about to write a block of commands, which will all be executed if my statement in the if is true. If it's false, then it will skip all of those commands. Now, here, I'm going to just do two commands to illustrate the idea of using two commands. I'll call it output text under age. And here, I'll just simply say, sorry, you're under age. Okay. Then what I'll do is say print out the output text for underage. Now, what I want to do is also specify an alternative block of code or set of commands to execute if the opposite is true, meaning if age is bigger than 21 or equal to. So we can do that by specifying an else statement with just a colon, no other tests. And basically, I can do something similar where I specify a variable and say, nice, what would you like to purchase? Then, of course, I can print this out to the screen. And you'll see that, by the way, the editor, I don't know if you've caught this, the editor, this editor at least, is super nice because it gives us suggestions about which variables we want to use here. So here we go. We're going to run this all. And just to illustrate the if statement. Now, again, it's basically going to grab input from the user, store that result in the variable age. It will then convert age to an integer, and then it will test if the age is less than 21. If it is, we want to output this text. If it's not, then we want to output the other text. So let's run all of this, okay? Please input your age. I am 30. 2. Nice. What would you like to purchase? So as you can see, I'm above the age of 21. So it skipped over these lines of code and it didn't execute them. Instead, it executed the last two lines. Let's run that again, which you can do by pressing the up arrow twice. I don't know if you found out that neat little trick, but in Python, in the console, you can repeat commands by just pressing up. Now, suppose I'm 18. Sorry, you're underage. So you see what's happening. It's taking values and it's going to execute certain commands based on the values that are stored in a particular variable, or more generally, based on the logical or the output of the logical test that was given to us. However, that's not the only thing that we can do with logical statements. The if else statement's only one thing that we can do. However, there are others. There are other logical commands, that we can execute using logical testing to control the flow and sequence of our code. And that's what we're doing here, right? We're controlling the flow of execution. In this case, the execution is dependent on whatever the value was set equal to age. That's what we mean by logical control. We are controlling the sequence of commands that are being executed based on certain conditions. However, using if-else is not the only way to do this.